Hi guys, it's Sheena from Teton Raptor Center and I'm here to give you this week's patient update. So let's go ahead and get started.
First up for the birds we're covering this week is Great Horned Owl 830. This is where the bird was found. He was sitting on this boat in somebody's lawn, and he came from Alta, Wyoming, and unfortunately is in care due to rodenticide poisoning. This is an illness that is completely 100% preventable. Teton Raptor Center highly recommends the use of snap traps. Those are the traps you can buy from the hardware store that will snap shut when a mouse or whatever you're trying to catch comes under them. And when you use poison, what happens is the mice will take that poison and slowly, eventually move out of the area that they were in and be prey to birds like great horned owls or other raptors or even other wildlife, and then those other wildlife end up becoming poisoned too. So there are really great alternatives for this. Anyways, this bird is doing okay. He's recovering in our supplemental oxygen unit, and he's on a course of medications that will help thicken his blood, and hopefully he won't need a blood transfusion, but we'll see. We do have Great Horned Owl 813 that could provide some donor blood if needed. Next up is Golden Eagle 829, and this bird came from Saddle String, Wyoming. It's about 6.5 hours away from TRC, so one of our volunteers is actually a pilot and ended up flying this bird over to us for care. He's dealing with a parasitic infection, both external parasites and internal, so he's on a course of anti-parasitic medication. He's also very thin. He is recovering in our ICU at the moment, and we hope that with those medications we'll start to see some improvement soon. Next up, we've got Swainsons Hawk 829, and this bird came to us from Idaho Falls. He actually came in due to a broken humerus in his left wing. However, this is one of the rare cases where we actually are not going to be proceeding with surgery for a humerus fracture, just because it is aligned and it already started to begin the healing process. His wing is not drooping at all, which is a really good sign, so we're hoping for the best, but really we won't know how we can evaluate his releasability until that fracture is completely healed in another 4 weeks and we evaluate his flight first. Next up is Cooper's Hawk 823, and this adult female Cooper's Hawk came in from Jackson after she flew into a window. She was dealing with a little bit of head trauma but has since recovered. We are, however, continuing a course of eye drops for her as well as an anti-parasitic medication. She did have a little bit of eye trauma on her left eye. She can still see 100% out of it, but we don't want it to get worse without treatment out in the wild. So when she finishes her eye medication, she'll be released right back out. Next up this week is Swainsons Hawk 822, and this bird came in from Casper, Wyoming. He was actually hit by a car and is dealing with some trauma on the right side of his body, a lot of bruising and soft tissue damage, but he's looking okay otherwise. He also has some road rash on his feet, but his injuries were all really superficial, so we do believe he's a really good candidate for going back to the wild pretty quickly. Next up is Swainson's Hawk 821. This bird came in from Idaho Falls with a broken femur in his left leg. He needed surgery, so we actually ended up putting a pin through his broken femur, one that's called an IM pin that just goes straight in to help the bone heal in alignment. And then the other pin that we put in is called a cross pin, and they're all external, so basically they just help the bones to heal in alignment. And then in 5 weeks we'll go ahead and remove those pins, and he'll start the flight conditioning process. Next up is Swainson's Hawk 818. This bird came in with a broken right wing. The right wing is broken at the ulna, and luckily it's a very nice midline fracture. That means that we don't need to proceed with surgery, and we can actually just keep this bird in a wing wrap in the ICU, and it should heal in alignment. Next is Great Horned Owl 813. This bird came in with a fractured humerus as well as a soft tissue injury on her left wing. The humerus has been pinned with a metal pin similar to the one that you saw before in the x-ray image. and it's healing up nicely. She has had her soft tissue wound closed with sutures, so it's been sewn shut, and so far everything looks really good and clean and healthy. Next up is Swainson Hawk 8-2. This is the bird that surgically had his right eye removed due to a luxated lens, so a dislocated eyeball essentially. And it's healed up really nicely. You can see the tissue has granulated in really well, and this bird has been doing good so far. Next up this week is long-eared owl 8-1. This is the bird with the fractured radius and ulna who went through surgery. Things are looking really good, and we're actually going to be pulling those orthopedic pins out next week. Last but not least, for the birds we're covering in this week's update is Northern Harrier 730, and this is the bird that was hit by a car in Evanston, Wyoming, and suffered some pretty serious head trauma. The concussion was so severe that there could potentially be some permanent head trauma that this bird will always deal with for the rest of its life. So we are just giving it lots and lots of time to see if those kinds of head trauma issues do resolve. We're hoping it doesn't have permanent and long-lasting brain damage, but time will tell.
All right, that's all we've got for this week. Thank you guys so much for learning more about our birds, and I hope you enjoyed tuning in this week. Remember that if you want to do your part to help keep wild birds wild, you can check out our website at tetonraptorcenter.org or click the donate button below and make a donation. Bye!